We all have someone or something in our life we can't get over with and move on. Well, most of us do, if not all. And when it comes to photography, it's camera brands. We all have that one camera brand that we keep coming back to no matter what. For some, it's Sony. For some, it's Canon or Nikon. For me, it's Fujifilm. And this is why I bought the Fujifilm X Pro 2 in 2025. And I'm going to talk about why I cannot recommend this camera enough to anybody who wants to start photography and invest in a Fujifilm ecosystem. I'm also going to show you some photos that I made with this camera that will help you decide whether you want to buy this or not. Let's talk about it. This camera came out in January of 2016, which makes it over 9 years old now. But over these years, this has acquired a legendary status among Fujifilm shooters, and for good reason. And this is an incredibly capable camera even today. Now, I started my digital photography journey with Fujifilm. The Fujifilm X-T4 was my first ever digital camera, and maybe that's why I have that sweet spot for Fujifilm as a camera brand that I just can't let go. So I bought the X-T4 in 2020, right before COVID happened. And the first time I held that camera in my hand, I felt right at home because I used to shoot film before. And that camera's tactical dials and the SLR film camera-like design made me feel right at home. I remember I used that camera a lot and I took a lot of good pictures with that. I then added the X100v to my kit as a daily carry camera and a point and shoot camera. And that was when the TikTok social media hype began, and that just catapulted the X100 series into the status that it has today. Everybody wants one. It's so popular that Fujifilm can't even keep up with the growing demand. I then sold my X-T4 and upgraded to the X-H2, which was another amazing camera. And I sold my X100V and upgraded to the X106, which is what I'm recording on right now. Now, I was really loving the X-H2 until that one firmware update came out that destroyed the autofocus in continuous autofocus mode completely and made it unusable. I was so frustrated with the autofocus performance whenever I had to go and shoot some portraits because I was getting those false positives. They would look good on the screen. Then I would go home and realize that it focused on the nose or it focused on something else and it just looked sharper on the camera screen, but the reality was completely different. So I had to say goodbye to that camera and let it go, and I had to jump ship and switch to Sony as my main shooter. From that period to now, Fujifilm has released a bunch of new cameras like the X-T50, the X-M5, X-Half. I'm not going to talk about that. That's another story. The GFX 100RF and the X-E5, which is their latest. So I was getting major FOMO and my never-ending gas that made me look into Fujifilm again and see what's going on there. And I decided to buy another Fujifilm camera. But this time, instead of going with those new players, I decided to buy the X Pro 2. And I have been super happy with this. Now, paired with this camera here, I have the 35 f2. I've used the 35 f1.4 before with my other Fujifilm cameras that I had in the past. And that lens is extremely popular as well among Fujifilm shooters because of the character and the quality of images that it produces. I felt like that lens was perfect for me, but it had its shortcomings, like it wasn't weather resistant and the focus motor was loud and it would hunt so much at times when I didn't want it to hunt. Especially when shooting videos, you could hear the motor sound when it was focusing in and out. So that was a little bit of a pain point for me. So I decided to try the f2 variant in this one, particularly because of the size, the weather resistance that it has, and also fast focusing compared to the 1.4 variant. And I'm very pleased with the results that I got with this guy here. And I still have the photos that I shot with the 35 1.4. And when I compare those with this one, I don't really see much of a difference. It might have had some character, but again, that character is not strong enough for me to justify going back to that lens and not giving this a shot. Pun intended. The X Pro lineup of cameras is majorly responsible for Fujifilm's success and also inspiring the whole X100 series lineup of cameras. You can see the X100 series draws similarities from this guy. When it comes to the viewfinder, this has that hybrid rangefinder style experience. It has your electronic viewfinder, your electronic rangefinder, which is the tiny square display that pops up at the bottom right here when you are looking through the viewfinder, and also an optical viewfinder. So that is also what's found on the X100V and the 6. And if you are a film shooter and you want to try a digital camera that makes you feel like you're shooting on a film camera or give you a very close experience, the X Pro 2 is an incredible buy for you. The build quality is top notch. It's built like a tank. It's a solid piece of gear. It's made in Japan for those who care about that stuff. I do, especially when the X106 and the newer cameras are also made in China. So you cannot be disappointed with the build quality of this guy. It's weather sealed, and paired with this weather sealed lens makes the entire unit more robust to extreme shooting conditions like rain, snow, dust, or sand. It also has dual card slots, so you can have 2 cards inside. In case one of the card fails, you can have a backup, or you can shoot 2 cards where you can shoot 1 card with RAW and the other to store JPEG. This also has a D-pad, which is not found on the X100V and the 6, so that makes customization more flexible for you. And I wished the X100V and the 6 had a D-pad, but unfortunately it's not there. So having a D-pad here gives me more room when it comes to customization. Ever since the XE5 was announced and it was launched recently, the X Pro 4 has been getting a lot of traction. Users have been begging Fujifilm for years to launch the X Pro 4, and they just have been delaying it with no particular date in mind of when they're going to release one. And due to the status of the X Pro lineup of cameras, the used camera prices of the X Pro 2 and the X Pro 3 have gone up, and it's incredible how these cameras are able to retain their value, especially being old in terms of today's standards. So it's about time Fujifilm release the X Pro 4. Fujifilm, if you're watching this, I'm not the only one asking for the X Pro 4, so please listen to what your users have to say. The image quality is what you would expect out of any Fujifilm camera. Fujifilm color science is great, so the colors that you get out of this camera are very pleasing. The raw files are a joy to work with. Now this one has the X-Trans 3 sensor. This was the first camera in the Fujifilm lineup to have the X-Trans 3 sensor. And having used the X-Trans 4 on the X-T4 and the X-Trans 5 on the XH2, the X-Trans 3 sensor is a breath of fresh air. And honestly, I have no complaints when it comes to the image quality. The sensor is 24 megapixels, which is plenty for me because I have used the 26 megapixel sensor in the X-T4 and the X100V. So this one doesn't feel too much different. You also can program recipes in this thing. Just be mindful of the 2 things. It doesn't have the classic negative film simulation, and it doesn't have the color chrome effects. So if your recipe requires those things, you won't be able to program that into this one. But there are still many recipes for X Pro 2 camera specifically that doesn't need those things, and you can still program those in this camera. The first thing that I don't like about this camera is the way it implements the back button focus, and that's primarily due to how I have used the back button focus on the other Fujifilm cameras that I described earlier. The way that it back button focuses is there's a trick to that. So you have the 3 focus modes here: single mode, continuous, and manual. You have to be in the manual focus mode, and that's when you can activate the back button focus here, and then you can decouple the shutter button. So you won't be able to focus from this button if you are in manual focus mode, and you can use the back button to focus. Now, if you are in single or continuous, it's a different story. You won't be able to decouple the focusing from this button, so no matter what you decide on the back side, if you decide this button to use as the back button focus, the moment you have pressed the shutter, it's going to acquire focus again, which is really irritating. So that is not the case in the other Fujifilm cameras that I have used, but maybe it's older, so that's how they used to do it, and they decided to change it in the newer models. That could be the reason, but this is how it back button focuses. So manual mode, and then you can use back button. Other way, you won't be able to. The second thing that I don't like about this camera is the battery. Now, it uses the same battery as the X100V and the 6. And again, it's an older camera, so I can't really blame Fujifilm for that. Maybe that was the best battery at that time. But today, having used the other cameras that have slightly better battery, this battery feels too easy to drain out. If you're out shooting photos all day and you need to keep the camera on at all time, I would recommend you get an extra battery or two. But the way that I shoot, I primarily use this camera for street photography and just daily documentation, lifestyle photography, that kind of stuff. I don't really need to keep the camera on for longer periods of time, and I can just turn it off when I'm not using it. So I'm able to get by a full charged battery. But since it's using the same battery as the X106 and I do have that camera, I do have two batteries, so I can carry two batteries if I need it. So just be mindful of that. The third thing that I don't like about this camera is the white balance tilt shift. So if you're dialing in recipes into this thing, each type of white balance will have one type of tilt shift. So let's say you want to dial in two recipes. One is your Portra 400, for example. The second one is your Portra 160, and both uses daylight as the white balance. So the moment you dial the tilt shift for Portra 400, it's going to apply the same tilt shift of red and blue to Portra 160. You won't be able to change it, because if you change it, it's going to reset it back to the first one. So each type of white balance can have just one type of tilt shift. The one solution to that problem is you use 7 different recipes that uses 7 different types of white balance. So that's another thing to be mindful of. Again, I shoot in RAW for the most part, so I'm okay. But if I had to use recipe on this thing, I would have to use different white balance types for those recipes. The last thing that I don't like about this camera is a sort of a love and hate relationship. It's the screen. So this has a fixed screen. It doesn't pop out. You cannot change the screen orientation. It's fixed to the camera. I wish I could change the screen orientation because of the other Fujifilm cameras that I've used in the past. It helps when I'm getting those low angle shots and I'm using waist level shooting method on the street. But I also love the screen because limitation breeds creativity. So it's a love and hate relationship, like I said earlier. Now, this thing does shoot video. You can shoot video in 4K and 1080p. I think the frame rates are 24, 25, and 30. You cannot have 60, I think. I would not recommend you use this camera as your primary video shooter. If you want to shoot casual videos, you don't care about IBIS, you don't care about log footage, you are okay with the straight out of camera footage that comes out of it, then by all means go ahead and shoot videos on this thing, but I would not rely primarily on this camera to shoot videos. So it can shoot usable videos, but it's not great. One word answer, absolutely. For what it offers in terms of value, the image quality, the ease of use, and the flexibility you have, and those gorgeous looks, I would definitely recommend you go for it and buy this camera, provided that you are able to find a good, usable, working condition body under $1,000, then go ahead and buy this one. Because these cameras can be really pricey, even in today's market, particularly because of how popular Fujifilm cameras are in general and the legendary status that the X Pro 2 has acquired over the course of these years. So yeah, just be careful if you want to buy one. Make sure that you are getting a great bang of your buck. Is that the correct word? The autofocus might not be as fast as Sony or Canon, but in terms of 2016's autofocus standards, it's pretty good. And for me particularly, I use zone focusing and manual focus and single point autofocus. It gets the job done for the style of photography that I do, street and lifestyle travel documentation. So I'm okay with the single point autofocus on this one. Editing the raw files is a joy, and the straight out of camera JPEGs are equally awesome. The camera gives you a great feeling when you're holding it and you are taking it out to shoot something. And I feel like that is beautiful, and that is one of the main reasons behind the popularity of Fujifilm cameras, is the way how they make you feel. At the end of the day, this is a tool and it's helping you get the job done. But in that journey of getting your job done, if it makes you feel better, makes you feel good when you hold the camera, and it inspires you to pick it up, go out and shoot more, That's all that matters. And I think that's a beautiful feeling. And that's why people like me keep coming back to Fujifilm. Even if they are shooting a great camera like a Sony a7R5, I'm still back to a 9-year-old camera. And I'm going to wrap this yapping session up here for you. And as I promised, I'm going to put some photos now that I shot with this camera. I hope it helps you make a decision of whether to invest in this camera or in Fujifilm ecosystem or not. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my small YouTube channel. It would help me a lot. If you dislike the video, let me know why in the comments so I could do better. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.